Welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show. I'm Jack Warner, and I'm joined alongside by none other than Chaz McAdams. Now, Chaz and I have chatted about sports quite often in the time knowing each other, and I mean just about anything: baseball, hockey, basketball. But what's most interesting about today is I don't ever recall us asking each other the score from the slam ball game last night. So today we have a very, very special guest who's going to introduce us to a whole new planet in the sports galaxy. We are very excited to have Mason Gordon with us today. He's the founder of Slam Ball, which is a high energy contact sport played on trampolines. It incorporates pieces of multiple different sports, and it made its initial rise to television popularity in the early and mid 2000s, and it's preparing for a return this month in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mason, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jack. Chaz, this is so awesome. Thanks for reaching out to me. There's about 100 yards that way is our slam ball training camp, and there are about 100 people over there working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day to bring slam ball back to the masses by popular demand.
I love it. I love it.
Concept. Like, we wouldn't be here if millions and millions of people hadn't gone crazy over slam ball highlights over the internet over the last few years, and the hashtag bring back slam ball movement, which we had nothing to do with. We weren't posting anything. It was Overtime Elite and Barstool Sports and Jason Tatum, and these were the people that were clamoring for slam ball. And now we're in a position to bring it back. And when that hashtag when media with that hashtag garnered over 500 million views on that content, we thought now was the right time.
That's got to be a great feeling to see. We're extremely excited to chat with you about this really exciting time. So Chaz, you want to get us going?
Yeah, definitely, Mason. Always a pleasure. I just want to take it back to the first run of slam ball and ask probably a question that I don't think anyone else could ever be asked in the history of sports media. What's it like playing in a league that you created?
That is a great question. The answer to it is that when I started in this warehouse on a court made out of spare parts, the hardest thing about the entire endeavor was getting football and basketball athletes to play together. And it's much, much harder than you think, because the football guys hit the basketball guys and the basketball guys just want to fight and they throw their hands up. So we can't play for more than 60 seconds at a time without a fight breaking out. And so while we were in this warehouse, I pulled the football guy aside that everybody had such a problem with. And I said, listen, we're going to go to lunch, but when we come back, I want you to hit me harder than you've hit anyone in your life. And I want to make sure everybody sees it. Can you do that, Jeff? And Jeff looked me in the eyes and he goes, I've been wanting to hit you since you first opened your mouth. So yes, I will knock you out. And that's what happened. I put myself in the game. Jeff came from 25 feet away and pancaked me right into the glass. I cracked 3 ribs, but I got up and I kept playing. And when the basketball guys saw that, it was like that buy-in was complete, and I was able to get basketball and football guys to play together. And that's always been the development of slam ball culture. It's where basketball and football cultures collide. It's a linebacker lining up across from a small forward, across from a point guard, across from a defensive back. And that is really kind of the wow factor of slam ball, is the fact that it combines all these different elements from different sports.
Now,
Definitely.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
So I also want to take it back to the very beginning of slam ball. It appears to be a mixture of several different sports, like you said, kind of baked into one action-packed game, but I feel like that's too simple of a way to look at it. Could you describe for us sort of the creative process in the development of the game?
Yeah, so the creative process was really linear. When I was younger, the UFC came out, and I'm talking, what are we, like a UFC 290? I'm talking about UFC 1. Like, I stole my mom's credit card to buy UFC 1, And I was so blown away by the concept. So if the original UFC could take all these different pugilistic styles, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, boxing, freestyle wrestling, and blend them together into something that younger audiences went crazy for, then my thing was, well, I'm not a fighter. I grew up playing team sports. I like basketball and football and hockey. And could I take the best elements of those sports and blend them together into something that actually worked and was exciting and fast and terrifically entertaining? And that was the idea for Slam Ball. There are things that I love about football, but you're physical for 7 or 8 seconds and then you're sitting around for a minute. I loved how fluid basketball was and nonstop, but you get slapped on the wrist and you start looking for the foul. And something about that never sat right with me. So I was always like, can these things come together into something that works? And once I was able to get the football and the basketball players to coexist, it was all really quite magical. I always had this idea that NBA Jam and NFL Blitz were these 2 video games that were like huge when I was growing up. And I was like, was there any kind of like middle ground between those video games? And what if it was in real life? And that was kind of the concept. And I begged and I borrowed, and some would say stole, some gymnastics parts from different places in order to build the first slam ball court. And the first one was like this horrible Frankenstein court that was held together with duct tape and bubble gum. But then I got better. I got real engineers involved. We built the first full court, and we got a national television deal right out of that warehouse once we built a full court and showed what this thing really was all about.
That's I love to hear that, like, especially from like a multiple sports background, just like bringing them all together is huge. I love the quote that I heard from an interview you did a while back where you were like, I did 3 things as a kid: played basketball, played football, and played video games. And I think we're definitely seeing that in this slam ball run. But I want to take it to, obviously, the on the court product speaks for itself. We've all seen the highlights through social media, but the off the court, you obviously have a pretty close relationship with Mike Tollin. So Tolan, for those who don't know, has worked with Mason, but also worked on the Last Dance documentary. And I just kind of want to, he's involved with this second run of Slam Ball, and he was involved with the first run. And I kind of want to just ask you about what's your relationship been like with Mike from then to now.
I actually just got off the phone with Mike. He was on the call with ESPN just now. And I'm unbelievably grateful for my relationship with Mike Tolan that goes back over 20 years now. He was the first guy to hire me out of college. He hired me for his company, Mandalay Sports Media. I worked there for many years, working on a lot of the projects that you named and others. In order to become a better storyteller. So when this opportunity came back around, which we fully knew it was, I'd be ready to communicate what's so special about this sport and these athletes. But you asked me very specifically, like, what's that meant to slam ball? And the answer is everything. A lot of people ask me, like, how do I create my own sport? And my answer is always the same. It's like, well, do you have a Mike Tolan? Because if you don't have someone like that in your corner that rides with you during the great times and the down times and never lose faith, slam ball has been like this real arc of perseverance to get to a place where it was really the original intention, where slam ball is live, engageable, and bettable. And that's what we wanted from the very beginning. And when I first sat down with Mike, I said, hey, it's going to be a sport and everybody's going to be up here like Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady and Kobe Bryant. And Mike was like, listen, we can't create a sport. We're just a couple of guys, but you may be able to get it on television. And if it's good enough and enough people love it, then maybe you have an opportunity to back your way into a traditional league model. So here we are 20 years later. I never expected that would be how long it took, but we saw alternative sports were just red hot, because I think young audiences are reaching out for sports to call their own, and there will be winners out of this alternative sports marketplace. And I think slam ball is a really good bet.
I want to stay on the topic of relationships because I think that's a really, really cool story. The list of investors that I got to read for Slam Ball it was very eye-opening. A lot of names that I recognized right away: Blake Griffin, Michael Rubin, Gary Vee, just to name a few.
Yep.
How did you and your team sort of develop these high-profile relationships, and could you just touch on their importance?
Yeah, absolutely. We looked at the timing of this because we've had maybe 1 to 2 opportunities every year or so to bring slam ball back. It's been really consistent, but it's always been kind of a shortcut, right? It's always been like, oh, we'll make it like Ninja Warrior and we'll put it on this streamer, or we'll make it a purely entertainment product like wrestling. And Mike and I are both sports guys, and we've steadfastly believed, and the one thing I'm really proud of is that we've never backed down from the scale of the ambition that we have for slam ball, which is to be on the sports landscape long term, and to exist between basketball and football seasons and really be a demographic hit, within that calendar part. So the alternative sports market really, really hot. We thought that the timing was really right, and we said, hey, let's go out and just go out into the capital markets and start having cursory conversations like, hey, we're really thinking about this. This is kind of how we do it. We put a plan together. We did some financial modeling. And what we found was that everybody agreed with us, which was kind of weird, because I've been saying the exact same thing that I always said, but I was kind of a clown before. And then now all of a sudden people are like, oh, that's brilliant. And I don't get too high. I don't get too low in any of these type of situations. But when we went out into the capital markets, everybody like understood the vision. Like it was like the ground shifted under our feet. And this has been a really challenging capital market for the last few years. And we were oversubscribed in a matter of about 90 days, 90 to 100 days. So it was really clear that we think, we'll see how the balance of the year goes, but we think we've done a really good job of targeting the timeline here and coming out at the right point in our development.
July 21st is probably a day that has been in your head for a very long time. The Slam Ball debut from Las Vegas on ESPN, 7/9 Eastern. Make sure you tune in. But I do have one last question for me, and this is big because it's big in the sports market now. Will people be able to bet on Slam Ball games on July 21st?
We've got an answer coming on that. I can't tell you definitively, but what I can say is that it's been really remarkable how the wagering community has responded to slam ball. If sports is real estate, then, they say location, location, location. And we are somehow adjacent to both basketball and football in the minds of a lot of consumers. We're between the two seasons. We're played by basketball and football background athletes coming out of major NCAA programs. So it's really kind of exciting. That adjacency is really kind of exciting. So what the wagering community really sees here is the ability to retarget basketball super users, football super users, and really be able to say these people want action 365 days a year, and they don't get it. So slam ball is a fun and exciting sport that we think can be live, engageable, and bettable during what everybody knows is kind of the sports desert of the summer.
In that answer, you sort of touched on some of the elements that I was actually going to request in this final question.
Sure.
We've seen some non-traditional sports and some spin-off leagues for football that have reached the air on major sports networks. and some have fended decently well, but there's also some that absolutely did not fend well at all. So my final question for you today, what makes slam ball different? Why will this game capture the modern American viewer that I think demands, high levels of action, but also often carries a shorter attention span?
That's really well said, and that really is the challenge. I think a lot of the sports that you're referring to are derivative. They're like, hey, it's football with a twist, but it's different from that. Their mindset is, hey, when you think NFL, we want you to think of us. They want to hug as close to that football vertical or that basketball vertical as possible. And so their appeal is purely derivative. We feel like our appeal that we're building a separate vertical, drawing from football and basketball athletes, football and basketball fans, football and basketball appeal, right? So we really believe that slam ball stands on its own as an interesting hybrid sports offering. And then that we're also offer a ton of strategic interest. As you get into slam ball, you can see the smashing and crashing and know what you're watching right away and appreciate it from that perspective. But when you start peeling back the layers of the onion and you see that there's like a real matrix of strategy here, there's a lot going on, and the sport genuinely has its own internal logic. We don't have former NBA or NFL players like coaching these teams. We have former slam ball greats. We have a long-time slam ball coaches. And so the authenticity of slam ball, I think, is something that people are really responding to. So you never know until it happens. But I learned really early on that we made a really big splash early on in cable TV. And even then I knew that this was going to take a while. And the reason is because sports are generational and require time scales. And whereas there's a lot of sports that are in the alternative sports market right now, and they're like, hey, we're a twist on hockey, or hey, we're full contact badminton, or whatever it is, right? The concept is that, in my mind, is that it's only the sports that make an impact, go away, and come back by popular demand that are really here for the long term. That's what happened with UFC and MMA. That's what happened with skateboarding and action sports. And that's what happened with esports. And those are the three great success stories of the last 20, 25 years in the sporting landscape. So we believe that slam ball is uniquely formatted to take advantage of that success pathway.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of Chaz and myself when I say we're both really, really excited, especially just because, even though obviously we love the sports that are marketed to us through our main networks, it's really fun to just see something new to sort of look forward to and have something new to watch and be excited, especially a game that's high energy that may have you, out of your seat screaming at the TV a little bit.
Well, listen, if you guys make it out to Vegas during our run, we'll set you guys up with tickets and everything. So don't hesitate to roll out. I'll get you on the court too.
There we go.
Absolutely.
Love to hear that.
That'll just about do it for our one-on-one interview special with Mason Gordon. Make sure to catch Slam Ball on ESPN later this month with the league's kickoff approaching us ever so quickly. For Chaz McAdams and all of WFUV Sports, I'm Jack Warner, and Mason, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us, and best of luck with the upcoming season.
Thanks, guys. Slam Ball is here to save the summer, July 21st. ESPN, don't miss it.
You heard it here.